What if the deepest wound you carry is not a mark of your weakness, but the very place where your true power is waiting to be forged? There is a silence that lives inside you. It's not a peaceful silence. It's the hollow echo in an empty chamber, the space where a battle cry should be. You feel it in the quiet moments between the noise and the distractions. A profound sense of being adrift on a vast, gray ocean with no land in sight. The winds of circumstance push your vessel, not the unwavering direction of your own will. You are a passenger in your own life, watching the scenery pass by through a smudged window, feeling the phantom pains of a destination you were meant to reach but somehow lost the map to. The world shouts and you listen. Your phone buzzes and you answer. Your doubts whisper and you believe them. Every external signal is a command and you have forgotten the sound of your own sovereign voice. You feel broken. Not in a dramatic, shattering way that draws sympathy and attention, but in a quiet, corrosive way that eats at the foundations of your spirit. A hairline fracture in the soul that widens with every compromise, every postponed dream, every time you chose comfort over courage. You see others, seemingly sailing with purpose, their sails full, their direction certain, and in that comparison the ache deepens. You are not the captain of your ship. You are barely a deckhand, swabbing away the grime of yesterday's regrets, hoping tomorrow's tide will be kinder. This feeling of being a ghost in your own story, of possessing a strength you cannot access, is the heaviest burden a man can carry. It is the silent tragedy of untapped potential. This is not a story of gentle healing. This is the chronicle of a forging. You will not be taught to patch the cracks in your spirit with fleeting motivation or hollow affirmations. We are here to walk a different path, a harder path. We are here to gather the shattered pieces of who you thought you were, to carry them into the searing heat of a blacksmith's forge, and to hammer them into something new, something unbreakable. You will learn not to mend what is broken, but to melt it down and reforge it into a will of unbreakable iron. Over the course of this journey, you will walk the path of the broken monk, a man who did not run from his fractures but went into them, exploring their depths to find the raw material for his rebirth. You will emerge from this crucible with a power that the world cannot touch, a stillness that the chaos cannot disturb, and a purpose that burns like a star in the darkest night. You will become unrecognizable not just to others, but to the person you are right now. The first, most devastating lie we are told is that our pain is a flaw, that our wounds are signs of defect. This is a poison fed to us by a world that fears intensity, that prefers numb compliance over dangerous, awakened power. But the ancient wisdom, the wisdom of the warrior, the stoic, the solitary shaman, knows the truth. Your greatest wound is your most sacred doorway. It is not a liability. It is your single greatest point of leverage for a radical transformation. Think of the archer. He cannot loose an arrow without first pulling the string backward. The tension, the strain, the seeming regression is the very source of the arrow's power and flight. Your pain, your brokenness, the moments that brought you to your knees, that is the drawing of the bowstring. The world tells you to let go of the tension, to relax, to avoid the strain. But the warrior knows that this tension, when held with intention, is the birthplace of unstoppable momentum. Your wound is not a random event. It is a targeted strike from the universe, designed to crack open the shell of the person you were, so the person you are destined to become can finally emerge. It is a specific frequency of pain that, if you learn to listen, will tell you exactly what you must build, what you must fortify, what you must become. The broken monk did not try to forget the blow that shattered his peace. He meditated on it. He studied its contours. He saw in its jagged edges the precise blueprint for the armor he needed to forge. Your deepest pain points directly to your highest purpose. Your fear of public speaking is a signpost to a leader waiting to be unleashed. Your heartbreak is a lesson in the art of building a love that is unconditional and self-generated. Your failure in business is a masterclass in resilience that will build your future empire. Stop running from the wound. Turn and face it. See it not as a curse, but as a calling. This single shift in perspective is the first strike of the hammer. It is the moment the cold iron begins to glow. It is the first step on the path from broken to unbreakable. The journey begins not in a thunderous charge, but in a profound and terrifying silence. The world we inhabit is a carnival of noise, a relentless assault on the senses. Notifications, opinions, advertisements, anxieties, a constant churning static that keeps us perpetually distracted, perpetually reacting. We have become so accustomed to this external clamor that we are petrified of the silence that awaits when it's gone. Because in that silence, we are forced to hear the cacophony within. The nagging voice of the inner critic, the ghosts of past regrets, the formless anxieties about the future. This is the inner storm, and most of us will do anything to avoid it. We will fill every waking moment with podcasts, music, conversations, work, anything to drown out the sound of our own untamed minds. The broken monk's first realization was this: you cannot win a war if you do not know the terrain of the battlefield, and the primary battlefield is within. His first act of defiance was not to lift a great stone, but to simply to sit in a stone-walled room and do nothing, to strip away all distraction and face the howling chaos of his own thoughts. This is the vow of silence. It is not merely the absence of speaking. It is the intentional starvation of the reactive mind. It is a deliberate pilgrimage into the wilderness of your own consciousness. When you first attempt this, it will feel like madness. Your mind, like a spoiled child denied its favorite toy, will thrash and scream. It will dredge up every embarrassing memory, every looming deadline, every possible thing that could go wrong. It will create false urgencies, compelling you to get up, to check your phone, to do anything but sit in this uncomfortable stillness. This is the first test. This is the guard at the gate of your inner citadel. Most people turn back here. They conclude that meditation or stillness is not for them, that their mind is too busy. They mistake the symptom for the disease. The monk understood that this initial chaos was not a sign of failure, but a sign that the process was working. He was finally seeing the enemy for what it was: a wild, untrained beast that had been ruling his inner kingdom for years. He did not fight the thoughts. He did not try to suppress them. That is like trying to flatten waves in the ocean with an iron plank, a futile, exhausting struggle. Instead, he learned to observe them. He sat on the shore of his own mind and watched the waves of thought and emotion rise, crest, and crash without being pulled into the undertow. He became the sky, and his thoughts became the clouds, drifting by without changing the nature of the sky itself. This is the fundamental shift from being the thought to being the awareness of the thought. In this space between the observer and the observed, true power is born. When a thought of fear arose, "What if I fail?" he would not engage with it. He would not argue with it or run from it. He would simply label it. Ah, fear, there it is. He would watch it, feel its texture, its temperature, its pull, and then watch it dissolve, as all thoughts eventually do when they are not fed with the energy of your attention. This practice, repeated day after day, began to change the very architecture of his mind. The gaps between thoughts grew longer. The inner storm began to calm. The volume of the inner critic began to fade. He was no longer a ship tossed on the waves of his own emotions. He was becoming the lighthouse, a steady, unmoving pillar of awareness that could weather any storm. He learned the difference between loneliness and aloneness. Loneliness is the pain of being by yourself. Aloneness is the power of being with yourself. In solitude, he discovered that he was not empty but full. Full of a quiet strength, a deep well of peace that was always there, just buried beneath the noise. He found his own counsel, his own true north, untainted by the frantic opinions of the world. To walk this path, you must carve out a sanctuary of silence in your own life. It doesn't have to be a monastery. It can be 15 minutes in a chair before the world wakes up. It can be a walk in the woods with no phone. The location is irrelevant. The intention is everything. The intention is to deliberately unplug from the external matrix and plug into your own inner command center. During this time, your only task is to watch, to listen, to allow the muddy water of your mind to settle so that clarity can emerge. You will be astonished at what you discover. You will see the patterns of your own self-sabotage. You will hear the limiting beliefs that have been running on a loop in your subconscious for decades. You will see, with stark clarity, how much of your daily anxiety is manufactured by your own mind, based on fears that have not and may never come to pass. The vow of silence is the great untangling. It is the first and most critical step in reclaiming your sovereignty. You cannot command an army you do not know. You cannot conquer a mind you have never truly observed. Sit in the silence. Face the storm. Watch it, learn from it, and let it pass. For in the stillness that follows, you will hear, for the first time, the quiet, powerful hum of your own unshakable will. Once the monk had learned to sit in the silence, to observe the inner storm without being consumed by it, he was ready for the second, more brutal stage of his transformation, the blacksmith's fire. He understood that peace was not the absence of hardship. True peace, true strength, was the ability to remain centered and powerful in the midst of hardship. He turned his attention from the inner world to the outer, to the inevitable pain, struggle, and chaos of life. He sought not to avoid it, but to use it. He would learn to transform pain from a poison that weakened him into a fuel that forged him. This is the alchemy of suffering, the core tenet of the warrior and the stoic. The art of turning lead into gold, obstacle into opportunity. The fundamental principle he discovered was that nothing in the external world is inherently good or bad. It is only our perception, our judgment, the story we tell ourselves about the event, that makes it so. A lost job is not a tragedy. It is an unforeseen opportunity to build something new. A betrayal is not a crippling wound. It is a brutal but effective lesson in choosing your allies more wisely. A physical injury is not a curse. It is a mandate to learn the art of patience and to appreciate the miracle of a healthy body. The monk began to see the world not as a series of random, chaotic events, but as a perfectly designed training ground, a gymnasium for the soul. Every single difficulty that crossed his path was a weight, specifically chosen by the universe to strengthen a particular spiritual muscle. He adopted a mantra, a silent incantation he repeated whenever adversity struck. This is for me. Not this is happening to me, which is the language of a victim, but this is happening for me, which is the language of a warrior. When a harsh winter storm trapped him in his mountain hermitage for weeks, destroying his meager food supplies, his initial reaction was fear and despair. The old, broken mind screamed of starvation and death. But then he stood in the howling wind, the ice biting at his face, and he spoke the words, "This is for me." Instantly the frame shifted. This was not a punishment, this was a lesson in resourcefulness, in enduring hunger, in mastering the fear of death itself. The storm was not his enemy, it was his teacher, his sparring partner. He learned to eat the bark from trees, to find sustenance where there appeared to be none. He meditated on the sensation of hunger, not as a torment, but as a pure physical sensation, separating it from the mind's panic story about it. He emerged from that winter thinner, scarred by the cold, but with a spirit forged in the ice. He had met one of life's greatest fears and had not flinched. The storm had tried to break him and had instead made him invincible. This is the practice you must adopt. You must become a mental alchemist. When life presents you with an obstacle, a difficult client, a financial setback, a conflict with a loved one, your first task is to pause, to take a breath before the old reactive programming kicks in. In that sacred pause, you must consciously choose your response. Do not ask, "Why is this happening?" Ask, "What can this teach me? How can I use this? If this were a test designed specifically for my growth, what quality is it meant to build in me?" This practice starves the victim mindset and feeds the warrior spirit. It takes the power away from the external event and places it firmly back in your hands. You are no longer a piece of driftwood at the mercy of the current. You are the stone in the river, shaping the flow of the water around you. The monk began to actively seek out discomfort. He would sleep on the hard floor instead of his mat. He would fast for a day. He would take walks in the bitter cold with minimal clothing. This was not self-punishment. It was a calculated strategy of voluntary hardship. He was inoculating himself against the inevitable suffering of life. He was training himself to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. He knew that a life spent in pursuit of constant comfort creates a soft, fragile spirit, easily broken by the first touch of adversity. A man who has never been cold will curse the winter wind, but a man who has intentionally bathed in an icy river sees the winter wind as an old acquaintance. He was expanding his capacity to endure. He was widening the window of what he could handle, so that the petty annoyances and major catastrophes of life would all fall within the realm of his resilience. You must do the same. Lean into the things you fear, not recklessly but with intention. Take the cold shower. Have the difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Sign up for the public speaking course that terrifies you. Volunteer for the project at work that no one else wants. Each time you willingly step into the fire, you burn away a piece of your weakness. You temper your soul. You are teaching your nervous system on a primal level that you can handle it. That you are more resilient than your comfort-seeking mind would have you believe. Pain, when met voluntarily, is a tool. It is the blacksmith's hammer. It is what transforms brittle pig iron into a blade of Damascus steel, folded and beaten 1,000 times, each layer adding to its strength and beauty. Stop running from the fire. Stop praying for an easier life. Pray to be a stronger man. Walk towards the flames. Let them burn away everything that is not essential, everything that is not you. What remains will be pure, unadulterated, unshakable will. With the capacity to face silence and the alchemy to transmute pain, the monk approached the next great obstacle on his path, the false king that ruled his inner world, the ego. This was not the modern, simplistic definition of ego as mere arrogance. This was the deep, insidious construct of the self, the collection of stories, beliefs, fears, and desires that he had mistaken for his true identity. It was the part of him that craved validation, that feared judgment, that compared itself to others, that clung to praise and recoiled from criticism. It was a tyrant king, sitting on a throne in his mind, demanding constant tribute in the form of external approval, and it was the source of nearly all his suffering. The monk realized that to achieve true freedom and unshakable will, this false king had to die. This metaphorical death is the most terrifying part of the journey for most. We are so identified with our egos that the thought of letting them go feels like annihilation. The ego will fight for its survival with all its might. It will whisper insidious lies. Without me, you are nothing. I am your ambition. I am your personality. I am what makes you asterisk you asterisk. But the monk, through his practice of silent observation, had already begun to see the ego for what it was. A ghost, a phantom built of smoke and shadows, a program running on old, outdated software. It was not his true self. His true self was the silent awareness asterisk behind the ego, the observer on the shore. The process of dismantling the ego began with a radical act, detaching his sense of self-worth from all external outcomes. He had once been a man who felt successful when he succeeded, and a failure when he failed. His emotional state was a puppet, and the strings were held by the world's applause or condemnation. The monk began a new practice. Whether he successfully completed a difficult task or failed miserably, his inner state would remain the same. He shifted his focus from the result, which was often outside of his complete control, to his effort and his intention, which were always within his control. He found his reward in the striving, not the arriving. When he built a stone wall, he celebrated the perfect placement of each stone, the focus in his mind, the strain in his muscles. If the wall later collapsed in a rockslide, he felt no sense of personal failure. The outcome was external. The effort was internal, and the effort had been pure. He was training himself to be immune to the roller coaster of success and failure. Next, he declared war on the ego's favorite food, the opinions of others. He intentionally performed actions that his old self would have deemed embarrassing. He would chant loudly while walking, knowing others might think him mad. He would wear patched, worn robes, indifferent to any judgment. This was not for attention. It was a surgical strike against the part of his mind that constantly scanned the environment for approval or disapproval. He was severing the psychic cords that bound his well-being to the fleeting thoughts in other people's heads. He realized a profound truth. What others think of you is their business. It exists only in their minds. It has no actual power over you unless you grant it that power. By systematically starving the ego of this external validation, its voice grew weaker. Its grip on his emotions began to loosen. The deepest part of this ego death was the surrender of his personal story. We all have one, a narrative we've constructed about who we are based on our past. I'm the guy who was always bad at math. I'm the one who came from a poor family. I'm the person who was betrayed. These stories, while seemingly harmless, are cages. They create a fixed identity that limits our future possibilities. The monk began to see his past not as a defining identity, but as a library of lessons. He was not the story of his wounds. He was the warrior who had survived them and learned from them. He practiced a form of mental amnesty, forgiving not only those who had wronged him, but forgiving himself. He released the heavy chain of his past, and in doing so, he became weightless, free to define himself anew in every single moment. To walk this path, you must become a hunter of your own ego. Observe it. When do you feel the sting of criticism? That's the ego. When do you feel the puff of pride from a compliment? That's the ego. When you find yourself comparing your life to someone's curated social media feed, that's the ego. Do not judge it, simply see it. Ah, there it is again, the ghost in the machine. Practice detaching your self-worth from your job title, your bank account, the car you drive. These are props on the stage, not the actor himself. Focus on your character, your integrity, your effort, the things no one can ever take from you. Deliberately do things that your ego resists. Take on a beginner's task and do it with humility. Admit when you are wrong quickly and completely. Listen more than you speak. Ask for help. Each of these acts is a small cut against the false king. The death of the ego is not a violent event, but a slow and gentle fading. As it recedes, something incredible takes its place. Authenticity, a profound sense of peace, the freedom to act from a place of deep purpose rather than a desperate need for approval. You stop performing for an audience and start living for yourself. This is the death that leads to true life. It is the shedding of a skin you have outgrown, allowing the powerful, true self to finally breathe. Having quieted the inner noise, learn to wield pain as a tool, and dethrone the false king of the ego, the monk now stood on solid ground. His mind was clear, his spirit was resilient, and his identity was no longer fragile. But he knew that this foundation, no matter how strong, was useless without a structure built upon it. He needed a system, a framework for daily action that would translate his inner transformation into consistent, real-world power. This was the stage of building the ritual of iron. He understood that motivation is a fleeting, unreliable guest. It is a spark in the wind. Commitment, on the other hand, is a fortress of stone. He would build his life not on the shifting sands of how he felt asterisk, but on the bedrock of what he had asterisk decided asterisk. Discipline, he discovered, was not a punishment, but the ultimate form of self-love. It was the act of choosing what you want most over what you want now. Every day, the whim of the moment would plead for comfort, for distraction, for ease. But the monk had a higher calling. He was forging an unshakable will, and that required a forge that was lit every single day without fail. His approach was not to rely on willpower, which is a finite resource that depletes throughout the day. Instead, he built a system of non-negotiable rituals, habits so deeply ingrained that they became as automatic as breathing. He was removing the need for decision. His day began before the sun. The world was still dark and silent. This was his sacred time. There was no debate. The moment he awoke, his feet hit the cold stone floor. There was no snooze button for the soul. The first hour of every day was his. It belonged not to the world, not to obligations, but to the forging. He would begin with his vow of silence, a period of meditation where he observed his mind and set his intention for the day. He was not a passive recipient of the day's events. He was the one who would impose his will upon the day. He would decide in advance what kind of man he would be, how he would respond to challenges, what virtues he would embody. He was priming his mind for victory before the first battle had even begun. After meditation came the hardening of the body. He would engage in strenuous physical exercise, not for vanity, but for the cultivation of mental toughness. He would push his body to its limits, feeling the burn in his muscles, the fire in his lungs. In these moments of intense physical discomfort, he was training his mind to dominate the body's pleas to quit. He was teaching himself that the body's perceived limits were a lie, a negotiation tactic from the weaker self. Every extra repetition, every moment he held the painful stretch, was a declaration of dominance of will over flesh. He was building a body that was not a comfortable couch for his spirit, but a hardened weapon. The final part of his morning ritual was the sharpening of the mind. He would read from the great texts of the Stoics, the warriors, the sages. He was not reading for entertainment. He was seeking wisdom, practical strategies for living a virtuous and effective life. He would take one single idea from his reading and make it his focus for the day. If he read of Marcus Aurelius's call to meet the morning with the expectation of dealing with meddling, ungrateful, arrogant people, he would spend the day practicing that preemptive patience, seeing every difficult interaction as an opportunity to practice his philosophy. He was not just accumulating knowledge, he was integrating it, living it, breathing it. By the time the sun had risen, the monk had already won the most important battles of the day. He had conquered his own laziness, disciplined his body, and fortified his mind. The rest of the day was simply the execution of a victory already decided. To walk this path, you must become the architect of your own days. Stop drifting. Stop waking up and checking your phone, letting the agenda of the world flood your mind before your own has even taken shape. Design your morning ritual. It is the rudder for your entire day. Make it non-negotiable. It doesn't matter what it is, only that it is intentional and that it forges you. It could be journaling, a brutal workout, reading, creative work, meditation. The key is consistency. The ritual must happen every single day, regardless of whether you feel tired, busy, or uninspired. You are not negotiating with your feelings. You are obeying a command from your higher self. This ritual builds a powerful momentum that carries you through the chaos of the day. It is a daily reminder of who you have decided to be. It is an act of integrity, of keeping the promise you made to yourself. The ritual of iron is what transforms abstract philosophy into a living reality. It is the relentless, daily act of hammering your character into shape on the anvil of discipline. Motivation will fail you. Feelings will betray you, but the ritual, once established, will carry you. It is the unthinking, unstoppable force of a river carving its way through stone. It is the source of a quiet, terrifying power that comes from being a man who does what he says he will do, especially when no one is watching. The monk had now built a formidable inner and outer structure. His mind was a quiet chamber, his spirit tempered in fire, his ego a servant, and his days governed by an iron ritual. He had achieved a level of discipline and resilience that few could fathom. Yet, he knew there was one final bastion to secure, the ultimate fortress that would make his will not just strong, but truly unshakable. This was the construction of the inner citadel, the stoic concept of a fortress within the mind that no external event, no matter how catastrophic, could ever breach. He had learned to handle hardship, but now he would learn to achieve a state of profound inner peace and equilibrium regardless of hardship. He sought emotional sovereignty. The foundation of the inner citadel is the unwavering understanding of the dichotomy of control. This is perhaps the most powerful and practical concept in all of Stoic philosophy. It is the clear and constant separation of all things into two categories, that which is within our control and that which is not. Within our control are our thoughts, our judgments, our intentions, our responses, our will. That is all. Outside of our control is everything else. The weather, the economy, the actions of other people, our reputation, our health, our very lives. The monk's final practice was to relentlessly, in every moment of every day, focus all of his energy and attention on the first category, and to practice a radical, serene acceptance of the second. When another person insulted him, the broken man of his past would have felt anger, shame, and a desire to retaliate. His peace would have been shattered by words from another's mouth. The monk, secure in his citadel, would simply observe. The other person's words and opinions belonged to the category of things outside his control. They were like the sound of the wind or the barking of a dog, external noises. What was in his control was his response. He could choose to interpret the insult as a reflection of the other person's own inner turmoil. He could choose to find humor in it. He could choose to feel compassion for their anger. He could simply choose to ignore it entirely, conserving his energy for what truly mattered. His inner peace was no longer a fragile thing that could be stolen by a stray comment. It was his property, locked deep within the citadel, and he alone held the key. He began to practice a powerful mental rehearsal technique known as premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. Each morning, as part of his ritual, he would spend a few moments vividly imagining all the things that could go wrong that day. He would imagine his simple dwelling burning down. He would imagine a sudden illness. He would imagine failing at his tasks. He would even contemplate his own death. This was not a descent into morbid pessimism. It was the opposite. It was a strategic rehearsal for adversity. By facing these potential disasters in the safety of his own mind, he was stripping them of their power to shock and destabilize him. He was preparing his citadel's defenses. If one of these events did occur, his mind would not be thrown into panic. It would say, "Ah, I have considered this. I am prepared." It transforms anxiety about the future into a calm and rational preparedness. He was telling himself, "I hope for the best, but I am fully prepared for the worst, and my virtue and my will shall remain intact regardless of the outcome." The ultimate expression of the inner citadel was the cultivation of amor fati asterisk, the love of one's fate. This was the final, most profound step. It went beyond merely accepting what happens. It was the practice of actively loving and embracing everything that happens, seeing it all as a necessary and perfect part of a grander design. He stopped wishing for things to be different. He stopped wishing the storm would pass, or the winter would be milder, or the path would be easier. Instead, he learned to love the storm for the lesson in resilience it provided. He learned to love the winter for the way it honed his survival skills. He learned to love the steep, rocky path for the strength it built in his legs and his spirit. He saw his entire life, with all its pain and all its joy, all its triumphs and all its failures, as a magnificent, sprawling tapestry. To pull at a single thread of regret, to wish one part of it away, would be to unravel the whole masterpiece. This was the ultimate freedom. It was the end of all internal resistance, the end of the war with reality. He was no longer fighting the current of the river. He was the river. To build your own inner citadel, you must become a ruthless guardian of your attention. Constantly ask yourself, is this thing that I am worrying about within my control? If the answer is no, you must train yourself to consciously withdraw your energy from it. This is a skill, a muscle that grows stronger with practice. Your political anxieties, your worries about what others think, your frustration with the traffic, all of it is a waste of your vital life force. Redirect that energy towards what you can control. Your next action, your attitude in this present moment, the quality of your work. Practice negative visualization. Spend 5 minutes each morning considering the potential loss of the things you hold dear, your job, your possessions, your loved ones. This practice will not make you morbid. It will fill you with a profound gratitude for what you have, right now, in this moment. And it will prepare you to face loss with grace and strength should it ever come. Finally, strive for *amor fati. See your life not as a series of random events, but as your unique and personal hero's journey. Every monster, every trap, every setback is a necessary part of your story. It is what is forging you into the hero you are destined to become. Love it all. For when you can truly love your fate, you become untouchable. Nothing can harm you, for you have decided that everything that happens, happens for you. Your will is no longer just unshakable. It is aligned with the will of the universe itself. You have found peace not by changing the world, but by mastering yourself. The citadel is complete. The broken monk is no more. In his place stands a silent, watchful warrior at peace in the heart of the storm. We have walked a long and arduous path together. We have journeyed into the deafening silence of the untamed mind and learned to be the observer of the storm. We have stood in the blacksmith's fire, transforming the poison of pain into the fuel of our forging, learning to see every obstacle as a divine training partner. We have witnessed the slow, deliberate death of the false king, the ego, freeing ourselves from the desperate need for a world that can never truly validate us. We have laid the foundation of an iron ritual, a system of non-negotiable discipline that builds a man of integrity and action. And finally, we have constructed the walls of the inner citadel, that unbreachable fortress of the mind where our peace resides, safe from the chaos of a world we cannot control. We began this journey with the image of a broken man, a ghost adrift in his own life. But the man who stands at the end of this path is something else entirely. He is a creation of intention, of fire, of will. But where does this leave you right now in the quiet of this moment? Look back at the last time the world tested you. The last time you felt the sting of failure, the bite of criticism, the cold grip of anxiety. Did you react or did you respond? Was it the event itself that broke your peace, or was it the story you told yourself about the event? Was it the wave that knocked you down, or was it the fact that you had never learned how to stand firm, how to brace yourself for the inevitable impact? This journey is not a piece of entertainment. It is a map, a blueprint. The Chronicles of the Broken Monk are not just a story to be heard, but a path to be walked. Every stage, every trial, every insight is a stepping stone waiting for your foot to fall. The tools have been laid at your feet. The silence, the fire, the death of the false self, the ritual, the citadel. They are not abstract concepts. They are practical weapons for the war of self-mastery. The journey of the broken monk never truly ends. The forge is never cold. The will is always being tempered. Life will continue to present you with new challenges, new storms, new fires. That is its nature. But you will no longer meet them as a brittle and fragile thing hoping to be spared. You will meet them as the blacksmith, hammer in hand, ready to use the heat and the impact to forge yourself ever stronger. The path is now yours to walk. The initial pain of discipline will transform into the profound peace of order. The fear of solitude will become the deep power of aloneness. The resistance to hardship will become a hunger for the growth that it brings. You will begin to move through the world with a different energy, a quiet confidence, a stillness that others find both intimidating and calming. You will speak less and your words will carry more weight. You will need nothing from anyone, and because of that, you will be able to give freely. This is the dangerous power that comes from becoming the master of your own inner world. The question is not whether you are broken. We all are in some way. Life is a process of breaking. The only question that matters is this: what will you forge from the pieces?